First, I have to explain what this chart means. All the drivers are shown here, and they are not in absolute terms, but in relation to who's in the lead. Therefore, in the last race in Turkey, Bottas was leading most of the race, then Max, then Checo, then Leclerc, and so on. So the lower you are, the closer you are to the front of the grid. And of course, Mazepin has the slowest time. It's not the slowest, but the most behind. It's 225 seconds behind Bottas. Another interesting fact, not interesting, but important thing to know, is that when you see a flat line like this, it means that the driver is going at the same speed as the leader. In this case, it's here's Leclerc and here's Bottas. So Sebastian, even though he was really far behind, he was going at the same speed as the leaders, but so were most of the drivers. And of course, these high slopes, here 165, Big Schumacher, 167, 170, 171, 172, 174. So it's losing about a second per lap. Here's 174, 176. Here he lost 1 second, here he lost another second, and so on. So he's just losing more and more time. Whereas Vettel is keeping up. He's way behind, but he's not losing more time. So important to know is that Leclerc is losing time, but it could be because he's lower, because he's behind someone. And that's what happens a lot. So this plot shows how Daniel Ricciardo really struggled by having changed his tires so early. Having changed his tires so early, they were going to about this point. About 25 laps. So let's look at Lando Norris. 10, 20, 25. Yeah, look at that. So he did good 25 laps, and he is about to go up, but that was the end of the race. What I did is I separated that originally plot you saw, and I took all the clutter out so that I could focus on certain items. So here we see that Ocon never changed tires, and his tires are as good after 58 laps as Daniel Ricciardo's after 25. The reason probably is because Ocon knew that he was going to stay for a long time, so he took better care of them. And Daniel didn't think that they would go so bad at this point. Again, this shows how Daniel Ricciardo struggled versus Lando Norris, and his race was as bad as Ocon's almost. Well, actually worse, but he started from a lower place. This plot shows Ocon versus Hamilton. Now we know that Hamilton is very good at taking care of tires. He stays even with the leader, which is probably Bottas, whereas Ocon, well, this is to be expected because Ocon has a slower car. He's always losing time. And then at this point, right here, so right here, this is when Mercedes asked Lewis to come in to change tires because they could see that this was happening. I think Mercedes calculated that if he didn't change the tires, his timing would be similar to Ocon's, and he would be 45 seconds behind the leader. But that's incorrect. Lewis is pretty good with tire handling, so I think he would actually have been right there. So I think that Lewis would have ended up almost the exact same place as he did by changing the tires if he had stayed out. Let's see what it is if he had Ocon's time of 45 seconds. So if he starts at the same properties as Ocon's, then he would have finished 50 seconds behind Bottas. And that is just ahead of Carlos Sainz. And that would have been in ninth place. So that's what Merck said they calculated it. But I don't believe it. Lewis Hamilton is better handling the tires. And the car is faster than Ocon's. So he would have been at the same place as when he changed. So here's when he changed tires. Here's what would happen if he would not have changed tires. He would have been at the same place, a little above or a little behind. So that would have been 40 seconds behind, which is the same time as what he did right now. There is one difference. Had he stayed out, he would have been third, and he would have been ahead of Perez. Okay, I forgot to include Leclerc. Perez would have passed him right here because Perez was faster. And he is losing speed throughout this time. But Perez is not losing speed. He is keeping up at the same speed as Bottas, while Hamilton is losing speed all the time. And then at the end, right here, he is ahead of both drivers. Here he's passed by Perez. Here he's only ahead of, he's ahead of Leclerc. He is ahead of Leclerc. Leclerc would have had to pass him on the last lap. Leclerc would have found it very hard to pass Hamilton the last 2 laps, as Hamilton was very slow, but Leclerc was faster, but possibly with a good defense, he may not have been able to pass Hamilton.